welcome to this week's MFB News. Hope everybody's having a really swimming week, and for those of you that are on half term, I hope you're finding lots of lovely things to do in between the rain showers. Now, in terms of what we've got for you this week, we're going to do our usual update on what's been happening with swap rates and lender interest rates, update you on any lender criteria changes. We're then going to have a quick look at the current forecast in relation to house prices, wage inflation, base rate, all that kind of stuff, to kind of give you a view as to what people are expecting to happen over the coming 12 to 14 months. And then finally, we're going to take a really deep dive into essentially the greenness of the UK private rental sector and share lots of really interesting data to kind of inform you about where things are, and really, I suppose, give you kind of view of the landscape in terms of how well the PRS is set up for the MES changes coming in, the EPC changes coming in 2030. Okay, now let's just kick things off with swap rates, as we like to do here. A bit of change downwards, which is good, because for those of you who watched last week, you'll remember that despite the very lovely direction of travel that we've been on for the last couple of months, things kind of spiked back up again last week. They have started to ebb back down again, nothing too crazy, but things are certainly going in the right direction. So in terms of what's been happening, so 2-year swap rates are currently at 3.87, 1 month ago 3.82, 1 year ago 5.03. So things are sort of coming down. And more importantly, looking at the kind of short-term data, so 3.87%, slightly down by circa 0.1, 0.2% on where we were this time last week. 5-year swaps, a similar story, so currently at 3.67. Last week when we did the video, I think we were at about 3.8, so things have gone down a little bit. 1 month ago though, 3.52, so you can see that things are still higher by circa 0.15% than they were 1 month ago, and this is why we're seeing still lenders sort of repricing upwards, but more on that in a moment. But to give you the kind of really good news, year on year, we're still in a good place. So 4.62 1 year ago compared to 3.67 right now. So year on year, we're still in a much better place. So in terms of how this is shaping out in terms of lender pricing, so we are seeing lenders continue to price upwards. Don't forget, there's always a time delay with these things. So if swap rates go up, the lenders then need to reprice their product range. And some lenders can do this really quickly, but a lot of them, it takes a bit of time, because they need to kind of go to their treasury, find out what interest rates, what products they can actually offer. Then it needs to go through marketing, compliance, and all those things. So it takes a while to kind of filter through. So when we saw swap rates go up about a week ago, it's no wonder that we're still seeing some lenders, pricing upwards now, so still kind of almost reacting to it. So in terms of who's have put their rates up this week, we've seen Virgin increase rates by 0.1%, Kent Reliance have gone up by circa 0.2%, NatWest by 0.3%, Accord Mortgages by 0.4%, and Bank of Ireland by 0.3%. However, we have also seen a couple of lenders bring some of their rates down. Now, not many lenders and not by a lot, but actually these are the guys who are really kind of reacting very, very quickly to movements in swap rates. So LendInvest and Landbay have both made reductions, LendInvest by 0.1 and Landbay by 0.15. Now, the lenders are very good at passing on these reductions in cost of funds, so swap rates essentially. So it could be that where we've seen things come down slightly in the last few days, we might see lenders be in a position to be able to start to bring their rates down a little bit over the next week or two. The thing is, what they're going to want to do is just see things settle down a bit, so it becomes stable. So what lenders don't want to do is drop their rates and then swap rates go back up again. Oh, we've got to put our rates back up again. So what lenders like to do or see is a bit of stability. So I suspect that really for the next week or so, we're probably not going to see a huge amount of reaction to the most recent kind of reduction in swap rates. It's going to take a bit of time to filter through. And that's also on the assumption that swap rates stay the same or come down even further. So as always, we will keep you posted. Okay, now just one bit of lending criteria this week, and this is a round of rental calculation reductions from Accord Mortgages. Now, Accord are, just to give you a bit of background on them, they're a really lovely lender. They are a buy-to-let lender who lends to individuals where people don't have large portfolios in the background, so they're sort of vanilla high street lender. They're part of a larger group, the Yorkshire Building Society, and therefore if you wanted to take a commercial loan or a limited company loan or borrow against an HML multi-unit, they would do that through their sister company, Yorkshire Building Society Commercial, who we've talked about in previous videos. Now, what they've done is they've essentially made the amount you can borrow per pound of rental income more generous. So to give you an example, and this is the calculation which has changed the greatest. Previously, they were saying that if it was a purchase or a remortgage, and there was capital raising, so you were remortgaging and taking additional borrowing above what you currently owe, then they would use a calculation where they'd be stressing the rent based on an interest rate of 6.5%. They're now stressing at 5.5%. Now there's lots of other kind of variations on a theme here with them, but that's the kind of biggest step down. So in short, with Accord mortgages, you can now borrow more per pound of rental income than you could 1 week ago. Why are they doing this? This is really kind of linked to the expectation of what's going to happen with interest rates. So when lenders are looking at affordability for buy-to-let mortgages, what they're going to be doing is saying, well, okay, you know, this is what you're going to be paying on the mortgage now, but we have to assume that interest rates may go up, which is, you know, the point in hand would be what we've experienced in the last couple of years. So lenders will always kind of make an assumption that at some point you may end up paying a higher interest rate than the one which you're currently taking, and therefore there needs to be some margin built in. So the fact that Accord are choosing to reduce this calculation tells us that they think that actually the rate you would go on to after 5 years would essentially be lower, and they don't need to be as stringent with their calculations. Why is this important? So really what this does is deliver a kind of message about Accord's sentiment for what interest rates are going to be doing over the next 5 years, i.e. in 5 years time interest rates are going to be lower than they are today, which may not come as a huge shock to most of you, but I think actually the more people that we hear with the same kind of message, the more it really kind of reassures us of the direction of travel for UK interest rates. And just staying on with direction of travel and kind of looking to the future and what's going to be happening, I thought it'd be just interesting to give you some data which is showing you where the markets are largely expecting things to go by the end of this year and then by the end of 2025 as well. So the first thing is base rates. The current projections are that by the end of this year we're going to be at 4.75%, and by the end of next year 3.75%. So 0.25% reduction to come this year, and then another 1% reduction in base rate throughout the course of 2025. House prices. Expectation is that the end position will be that growth will be at 2.3% in 2024 and at 4.2% in 2025. So actually they're expecting the market to really gain some momentum next year. Unemployment will be at 4.2% by the end of this year and 4.4% by the end of 2025. So we are expecting unemployment to increase a little bit. Wage inflation is certainly going to slow down, but it's still going to be outpricing inflation. So at the end of this year, wage inflation will be at 5.4%, and in 2025, it will be at 4.2%. And then finally, inflation itself will be at 2.6% at the end of this year, and at the end of next year, it will be at 2.9%. So people are expecting inflation to kind of bubble up a bit, but actually in terms of forecast for base rates, still very much coming down by up to 1% next year. Okay, now with the changing requirements once again in our kind of peripheral vision, as it were, for 2030, I know lots of landlords are now thinking about how they're going to improve their properties to meet the EPC requirements coming in. And so it was very, very fortuitous that the Mortgage Works delivered into my inbox this week the Private Rental Energy Performance Report, which talks about essentially the energy efficiency of the private rental sector. And it's really, really interesting. So I just wanted to share some of the data with you. And it was quite data heavy. So just bear with me on this and I'll try and interpret it and make it a bit more kind of user friendly. So first of all, some general statistics. So 70% of social rented stock in the is EPC rating of A to C. Whereas in the private rental sector, this is 45%. So 55% of properties in the private rental sector currently would not meet the threshold of EPC rating A to C in 2030. Now, interestingly, compared to the home-owned section of the market, so private rental sector has an above average energy rating of A to C compared to owner-occupied stock, but then it also is overweight in stock with lower ratings of F or G. Now, I did sort of think, how can that be? Because actually then a G rating wouldn't be legally lettable, but these are the properties where there are exemptions, I'm guessing. So it seems that actually there's lots of A to Cs and there's lots of F and G properties basically in the private rental sector. Now, in terms of location, 60% of London homes are rated A to C, probably because it's more flats, and flats do tend to be more energy efficient. The West Midlands and the Yorkshire have the least efficient properties, with just 25% of them rated A to C. So when we were talking about the warm homes scheme that's coming in, I suspect that the West Midlands and Yorkshire would probably focus quite highly in terms of the postcode eligibility. Now, much of the regional variation will likely be connected to the age of stock and the mix of properties. So 58% of flats in the private rental sector are an A to C. So those areas which are more densely populated with flats, for example, London, would have a higher percentage average of A to C properties. 25% of terrace homes are green rated, 16% of semis, 5% of detached houses and 4% of bungalows. Now obviously, as we kind of work our way down that list, these are the properties that become more expensive to make greener. And that's no doubt going to be somewhat connected to why there's less of them that are meeting that kind of A to C rating. Now, in terms of value that landlords place on energy efficiency and the premium that landlords are prepared to pay for properties, which are greener ratings. So the analysis suggests that a more energy efficient buy-to-let property rated A or B attracts a significant premium of 10.9% compared to a similar property which is a D rating, which is the most commonly occurring one. C-rated properties attract a 3.4% premium, while there's a discount of 1.7% for E-rated properties. So the value that buy-to-let purchasers attach to energy efficiency, in particular more energy efficient properties, appears to be significantly greater than for owner-occupiers. For example, an A or B rated house bought by someone looking to live in the property themselves only attracts a 2.2% premium. So I guess understandably, because we're the ones who are going to have these EPC ratings of A to C, when landlords are looking at properties actually having a greener rating, so they haven't got that kind of concern going forwards, could be very attractive. Now the price premium does vary markedly across the country. In the north of England, an A or B rated buy-to-let property attracts a 15% premium, whilst in the Midlands it's 12.5%, and in the south of England it's considerably lower, actually at 5.6%. Again, something maybe just to think about if you're thinking about buying a property to renovate and do up. Adding or improving the EPC rating could be something that really kind of drives up your resale value. Now, in terms of if there's a rental premium for energy efficient properties, so the impact is smaller than in terms of purchase prices, but it is there nonetheless. So analysis suggests that an A or B rated property attracts a 7% rental premium compared to a similar D rated property. Their estimate of typical rent in England of £1,025 per calendar month. This equates to a premium of £70 per month. C-rated properties attract a 2% rental premium, which is around an extra £20 per month. Although they found no discernible discount on rents for less energy efficient properties at this stage. So the better the rating, the more rent you can ask for. But actually, if you've got a really terribly rated property, then actually it's not going to currently kind of disadvantage you too much. Now, in terms of energy efficiency of the total housing stock, it's gradually improving, which is great news. So over the past 10 years, energy efficiency of overall stock of all tenure types has improved significantly, thanks in part to the higher energy rating of newly built properties. However, the rate of improvement has slowed markedly in recent years. The latest data from 2022 shows 48% of housing stock of all tenure types is now rated C or higher, which is up from 18% in 2012, so that's great news. Newly built properties typically have a much higher rating. 97% of newly built properties are an EPC rating of C or above. Although the stock increases very slowly, circa 1% per year. But it's important to note that while those homes are energy efficient once built, a significant proportion of new homes' carbon footprints, so between 25 and 50%, relates to its construction. So I think really what we can kind of take from that is that actually, first of all, 55% of properties in the rental sector, private rental sector, wouldn't be eligible to make the thresholds at the moment. In terms of the benefits of doing the works and doing the changes, well, first of all, it can actually add value to your properties, as we could see. Depending on who the buyer is, particularly if you're selling on to a landlord, it would command a greater premium than if you were selling on to a homeowner. But also actually by driving up the EPC rating, it can actually really improve the rental income. Now, in terms of cost, just to touch on this briefly, according to the latest English Housing Survey in 2022, the average cost to improve dwellings to Band C was around £7,400, with an overall estimated total cost for upgrading the entire housing stock of between £91 and £94 billion. As expected, dwellings with ratings of E to G have higher average cost to improve than D-rated homes, so they're looking at around £13,500 versus £6,200 for D-rated homes, so £13,500 for E to G and £6,200 for D-rated property. So I think because the costs are so large, people are put off making the changes. The reality is that this is on the horizon and we're all going to have to do something. I guess, as like I am, you're all waiting to hear what the kind of rules are going to be, exemptions, also hearing more information about the Warm Home Scheme that's coming into play as well. But hopefully this at least gives you some idea about the scale of the works that are going to need to be done, the benefits of doing the work, and also what costs might be involved for you. And that is us done for yet another week. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please do give us a shout, 0345 345 6788, or you can get in touch via our website. There's an online chat thing, actually, it's really good, and you come through to a human rather than a robot. Imagine that. Real people at the other end of the conversation. So look, have a really great week. For those of you who are on half term, good luck, and I will catch you same time next Wednesday.